All right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. The discussion starts right now. We'd like to hear from you mostly. How do you perceive the current leadership of the nation? What are your areas of priorities and areas of concern? And what do you think the role of social media is when it comes to political opinion of young people? That's a conversation we're going to have with my guests in studio. Let me introduce them one more time. Starting from my farthest right, Marco Uko is here, Youth Coordinator, National Students Council. Thank you for making time. Alenga Torostad, the Governance and Public Policy Expert. Asante sana for making time. Shiko Kihika, Executive Director, Tribeless Youth. Thank you very much for making time. And Victor Marende, Leader, Movement for the Defense of Democracy, MDD. Thank you very much. Before we talk about this general leadership in the country, let's take a look at the dailies here. And we see on the front page of the Standard, goofing home and away. And then also on the Daily Nation, Duale paves the way for Shah tycoons to pocket billions. Let's just get into it. Alenga, you're the first one here. What is your concern with the current leadership of the nation? Are we heading in the right direction or the wrong direction?
Trevor, thank you for the auspicious welcome to this show this morning and delving direct into the discussion. What is the state of this leadership that we have at the moment? Number one, and what strikes my attention so strongly is the negligence of the youthful population of this country by this regime. They have no plan to help the young people materialize their talents, their education, and their participation even in governance systems. The door is locked, the windows are locked, and the young people are just outside. These growing numbers are a big concern, and sometimes, sometime in future, we may have very serious questions to answer these young people, and maybe it will not be a nice show. So the government must wake up and realize that this youthful population needs answers to the abounding questions that they have. You feel they've been neglected. How would inclusion look like for you? Inclusion would look like this if we have a system that recognizes effort by young people. We were told while growing up that education is the equalizer. And then young people, through very poor backgrounds, worked their way through education, just hoping that they will be able to get something so that they can even feed their mothers or their fathers or their parents who struggle to put them through education. So you finish education, you have your degree, you have your diploma, you have your certificate, and the doors are all closed. But every day you see politicians, their cronies, their supporters, getting jobs every other day. You see positions being created for advisors, for whatever. Very inefficient way of running the economy. They tell you that there is no money, but there is money to create positions to absorb failed politicians. There is money to absorb broad-based products. There is money to absorb all the unnecessary things in this country. But continuously, young people are told, there's no jobs. Your startups, when it comes to the startups, the conditions are too high for these young people to meet. The money that they need to shed off just before they can start up something, the tax regime, all those things continue to shatter the dreams of young people. But then what does the government tell you? There's nothing we can do. We are planning, we are arranging, we are doing things. Today we are shipping our young people out of this country into servitude in other territories. A lot of things are happening and nobody seems to say anything. Young people are being conned in their thousands for jobs that are not existing by agents that continue to sit in this country and enjoy the cover-up of government and security agencies. These young people have questions, and these questions will be answered someday. Okay. Victor, is that your feeling as well, that young people are neglected from the government?
Trevor, good morning, and good morning to our viewers. Thank you for having me here. Now, before I would go into what is the subject of the day, I would really want to condole with fellow Catholics and faithfuls on the passing on of His Holiness Pope Francis. But as we condole with His Holiness Pope Francis, then in Nairobi, closer home, we have 6 who have died because of the recent floods. So I would also wish to condole with their families, but then ask politely and rightfully to have leadership that cares about its citizens it's been a recurrence that every raining season in Nairobi is a death trap for Nairobians. Then it's also unfortunate that one of our MCAs in the city, Joel Munuve, may the Lord rest his soul in peace, a friend, also just collapsed on his way to work and passed on. May his family find comfort. So having said that, Trevor, the youth situation in this country is an issue that needs addressing. And as my friend Alenga puts it, the youth need answers. They need answers. Now, they need answers from the government. They need answers right within them. And quite without saying where the blame is, because then we would be turned into a crying nation. I would also not want to waste a whole career of myself blaming someone. You know, where I come from, when we come to the city, and when I came to the university as the first time in Nairobi, then we had most of us saying, oh, where were my parents when my grandparents when these tall buildings, skyscrapers were being built in the city? Did my grandfather sleep on the job? Was my grandfather just writing love letters to my grandmother? Then when you don't really focus on building yourself, yeah, then you live a life of regret. So even as we know that then there is a real problem because the youth population is bulging. And you know the current problem, what most of government officials and government, and even ourselves have not realized, is that the current youth problem in the country is not the ordinary youth problem that we had in the past. And in the past, we had a youth population that is not adequately educated, not adequately informed. Now, the current problem is an urban youth problem. When you look at the demonstrations that we had in 2023, when you look at the demonstrations that we had in 2024, they were urban youth-led. It is not the normal ghetto youth-led demonstrations. So then it means that the youth on the street is educated, but with no job. Is informed, with no job. But apart from the information that they have and the education they have, the youth are saying, give us an enabling environment. Because then we are in the E-era, where the youth can even find themselves jobs abroad, online. And they would be comfortably seated in their places, in their residences, and doing these kind of jobs. Are we being enabled to do them? You are talking about taxation on startups. The amount of double taxation on every single business you want to start up. You get someone giving you a tax on maybe you have to get a license on making noise. The same license, if it's food, then there are several agencies wanting you to pay duties and levies. So I would really maintain that without directly giving youths jobs in government, because the government can only accommodate almost just 800,000 to 1 million people at any given single moment. And the positions are filled up. So then it means that whatever vacancy would occur either when one is fired, one dies, retirement, or early retirement otherwise. So then where is the opportunity? It's private sector and self-employment. Okay. So an enabling environment will do wonders.
Okay. Chico, do we have an enabling environment for the young people to thrive in their own capacity?
No. We've not had this for the longest time, and I think we've had this conversation over and over again. And my biggest problem is, and I like that you said a retirement happens, and that's when we have an opportunity. In this country, people don't retire. People wait for their death. And when they die, their wives are given positions, or their kids are given positions. So there's no room for vacancies at all. So for me is, and I hate to have this conversation or nearly having a conversation about another finance bill, because then it means more taxation, because our president is out here going to borrow, and he's gone to the east where he said he'll never go. So we know more debts are coming, whichever way, and we know China collateral is never good for the people. So for me, I think as a country, we've never had a genuine conversation on what an enabling environment for our young people looks like. So everybody uses the word empowerment, empower the youth. But if you look at the structures of empowerment when it comes to even our county governments, it's football kitties. And most of the county governments have a budget of 200,000 for the youth. And that's supposed to be an empowerment budget under the governor's kitty that goes to buying footballs and jerseys, you know. So when you look at it, we have really looked at our youth as, I don't want to call them options, but completely marginalized them to a point where we only remember you when we need your votes. Right now, all of them are campaigning. We've seen our president making tours everywhere in the country now. So he's made a statement that he's ready to campaign again, or that he's already campaigning. This is a man in power. Instead of asking ourselves, why is it that just last year we lost so many lives? Just last year, we had so many young people protesting. Just last year, we had so many young people filling their offices because they promised us odd jobs abroad, right? And then it comes out to be a con. So then it tells you how this government has taken us, or how they look at us. Like your people of small pennies, that whatever we throw at you, you'll be okay. And we don't want to have a proper, genuine conversation of what this means. Because I wish I would walk into a government office. They have the government affirmative fund that is supposed to be for women, young people, and persons with disability. This money has never been categorized in a way that, you know, this much is for women, this much is for youth, this much is for persons with disability. So the youth are just, oh, get a group of 10, we give them 50,000, let them go start a chicken business. And everybody believes every young person needs to be a farmer. And I never get where that comes from. We have the youth fund, which is supposed to be an enabling fund for the youth. We do not know how this fund gets to young people, because the match you get is 100,000, and you have to be a group of between 10 to 20 people. So then how does this enable you to even start a business? Because then if you give me 100K and we're 10 people, that's 10,000 per person. I don't have rent for that month. I'm going to sort my rent first before I think about a business. And there is no business that you're going to start with that is worth 10,000 shillings, that is going to give you a sustainable life. And, you know, it's interesting because the people who tell us, oh, Chukua, what is that fund by Ruto for M-Pesa?
Hustler Fund.
Hustler Fund. So,
500, Bob.
I told I'll give you Hustler Fund so that you start an enabling business. You've given me 500 shillings. Yeah. Him and his chicken business that he started before becoming the president, did he start it with 500, Bob? I'd really want to see a broken down Excel sheet of how it grew to the billions he handles right now. So for me, I think we need to stop lying to our youth in the name of empowerment. We need to stop throwing this word empowerment. It's as if our young people have no ability to create. And we need to stop looking at our youth like people who, if they're not home farming on lands that don't exist, one, then they have no opportunity. Or if we're not taking them to Saudi to become house helps and whatever else we are looking at giving them, then they cannot succeed in their own country.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mark?
Yes, thank you so much, Trevor, for having me. I will answer this question in terms of two binaries. So when you look at the approach that has been emerging, especially amongst the youth, it comes in two forms, okay? There's the political approach that has been coming up and the economic approach that has been coming up. And I think they have laced so much about the economic approach. Now, one, as I start by responding to the political approach, there has been an exponential growth in terms of the public approach, especially from the public anger over the past year, particularly since the inception of the finance 2024 finance bill. And the reason as to why we are getting the public, the people themselves are becoming the opposition itself, this is one huge political blunder that the president did. And what is the political blunder that the president did? The president has micromanaged the traditional spaces via which people used to find solace in expressing themselves, okay? In the past, people would either express themselves via the opposition, which was, you know, the opposition is Raila Odinga. You know, he has a huge say on that space. If the president is micromanaging the opposition...
to mislead.
Eh?
Are we also allowed to mislead our viewers?
No, I'm saying,
you disagree with
we
it.
already have the opposition in government.
Yeah.
We have the public. You know, politics is about persuasion and perception. The public perception out there is that the opposition is in government. The parliament.
It's reality. They are there.
The public perception is that judiciary is being micromanaged by the executive. Parliament is being micromanaged by the executive. The opposition is being micromanaged by the executive. Then that leaves the public is that now they have to be the opposition themselves because they do not find out the traditional spaces that they could express themselves. In terms about the economic uproar, I do agree with myself that there is a huge trust deficit from the youth in terms of the capacity of government in absorbing them, say, into building the economic transformation. But I'll say this is not something that has been incepted during the incumbency of President Ruto. This has been a long running problem. And I will go to something that Marende has done. The work of government is not particularly to give people jobs. That's not the primary job of government. The primary work of government is to create an enabling environment in which people can get jobs, or create an environment for those who may not go to the formal spaces, create an entrepreneurial culture that is favorable to them. Then that raises the question, what are the precautions or the incentives that government can take in enabling such environment, reducing the taxation level, say, for those who are going to the digital space, because that is seems the most viable space that most young people are going to create jobs. So those are my 2 cents thoughts about as a preamble to this discussion.
I'm about to take a break, but let me bring in Alenga on this, because all this, I was setting this stage because I wanted to ask you that next question. Are we ripe for a new era of politics, or will we do more of the same?
I think,
because
Trevor,
how does this entire dynamic shift? How does it shift?
I think, Trevor, first of all, is to discount the fact that governments do not exist to give jobs to citizens. Actually, they do. And that is why in every manifesto, you see anybody that wants to become president or to rule the country says they will create this number of jobs. They can't be stupid to say that in their manifesto. They know. This is how governments create jobs. Governments create jobs by engaging in bilateral ties that increase production in their own countries. Let's say the way the president is in China. If the president can negotiate how China can set up a big manufacturing plant in Kenya for microchips and maybe nanotechnology.
Which is what part of it was.
That will actually...
147 billion mostly was for starting different enterprises under PPP. Part of it is in reviving things
exactly.
Like
so if those are done, if those are actually materialized, because we've seen a lot of these conversations. Remember when we had even a whole list of goodies on the American website trying to tell us this is what we'll get, this is what we have agreed, and till now we are waiting. So if that bilateral ties work to the advantage, or they work in the sense that I am increasing capacity for my country, not that I am negotiating some loans for my country, then out of these loans we will get these, we will eat these, we will put aside these, we'll do this, then that brings down the whole structure. Now to the question that you asked, are we ready for a shake-up of the governance?
A new era of politics.
A new era of politics. Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that right now there are so many people that understand where the country is going. You cannot lie to an ordinary Kenyan that the economy is doing fine, that SHA is working, that this is working. You don't have to. You cannot lie to Kenyans. They sift through that information. They see what is working and what is not working. So Kenyans know where they are at the moment. They know that they are suffering. They know they are suffering because of the ills they brought themselves by voting in this regime. They can clearly point where their problem is. They know the other problem is Raila Odinga, who has curtailed the space for them to criticize government. Now government is doing everything the way they want. They have nobody, they have no opposition to stop them. They have no one to check them in parliament. Opposition politicians are praising the government on a day-to-day basis. They are always on Twitter. everywhere. They are speaking in barrios, pontificating a lot of nonsense. That's where we are as a country.
Is that a fair statement, Alenga? Because, you know, this in itself is a big concern. Just the other day, James Orengo, the Siaya governor, is taking fire for having allegedly spoken against what other people say. So when you say that all the politicians are singing praises to the government, is that a fair statement?
Did you see the backlash that Orengo received for just speaking his mind? And the people who mobilized against him are actually the people that not so long ago we were looking at them as saviors. I was taking a back step and I was like, okay, so these are the people that we thought were going to rescue us. Just the same people that are pressing our heads in the water so that we can drown properly. They are the same people we were thinking they will arrive with a life-saving boat and pick us up. So the opposition has really messed up the country because right now we have a government that can just run how it wants. It can ravage the way it wants. Nobody is going to speak. Nobody is going to talk. Yeah. So that's where we are as a country. But the good thing is that every ordinary Kenyan understands what is happening. I think while ODM was going into this, they believed that everybody would just be quiet and say, when Raila is happy, everyone is happy. But for the first time, people are reading through and they're like, wow, if you just wanted 3 ministerial positions for Nyanza, did people have to die? This is something you could have negotiated in a hotel and just tell Mr. Ruto, I want 3. Can you give me? You didn't have to take people with sufurias on the streets. Why were they demonstrating? Why were they calling for a fair system if this is only what you wanted?
Are you assuming that Raila called for the protests?
This is the other thing that,
because
yes, he did. In 2023, he did.
We are talking about 2024 because this is where the handshake happened.
I'm talking about the 2023 because that resulted from the issues that we had with the government that had just taken power. So then he calls for these protests, and remember how many people lost their lives in those protests. You know, we keep forgetting, and we always remember the most immediate. Before the Gen Z demonstrations, there were demonstrations in 2023, and lots of people lost lives. But now the point is, if we were merely looking for a way to get into government, did we have to have that level of casualties?
Okay.
You know?
And Marende, was that a way of looking to get into government, or was it an alternative way after the protest? Because this is the argument that I keep hearing.
By their fruits, you will know them.
But the opposition side, I keep hearing this argument that they've been on the streets for long, and now this was a new approach to have dialogue rather than go on the streets.
You know, Trevor, I see an attempt to try to answer the question you asked. But then before that, there is this misleading statement that is made here by almost now all the speakers except Chico.
Two speakers.
That Raila is the opposition in Kenya. Yeah. You know, as we attempt to get into the new era of Kenya, we must also strive not to have the hangover of the yesterdays. Because then we have a new constitution in this country that was promulgated in 2010. It's no longer new. It's a working constitution in this country. And this constitution is very clear that there is no opposition in this country. We have the majority and minority parties. And the people can take up that role at any given time they would want to take it up. And it is clear in the first chapters of the constitution and the preamble. So
Marenda, would you tell us what is the role of the minority?
Alenga, allow me to make this point.
Yes, while you are doing that, just remind us the role of the minority.
I would answer to Trevor and not to you.
I knew you wouldn't.
Now, when we talk about Raila owning the opposition, then we are not being progressive as a country. Because in 2024, there were demonstrations in this country to almost a coup without the involvement of Raila Odinga. To almost a coup. Now, we've had demonstrations before Raila Odinga. There were demonstrations against the British colony in this country and against the British government. That it forced the British government to have a state of emergency in the country, like the one we almost had in 2024. There was no Raila at that time. But then, to talk about a new era and have a discussion about what we must do as a country politically now, And you know, Alenga has made a statement to insinuate that he knows those who are mobilizing against Orengo. And he said he knows, he never thought they would do it.
But we all know them.
It's okay. Me, I don't know them.
We all know them.
Me, I don't know them. But then we must agree that the current discourse in the country and within the political party of ODM is very healthy, firstly to state it. And I would want to jog our minds to the Labour Party in the UK, the party that lost elections from 79 to 1997. And in 92, after the death of Smith, who was the party leader of the Labour Party, then they sat down to reorganize, to rethink why the Labour Party lost, a party that was the people's favorite, that won almost all the elections in that country. So it's a time for reflection. Now, you look at the recommendations that they had and to the change of Schedule 4 of the party constitution, to transform that party from a socialist party to a party that cared about the people. Is it ripe for a discourse in this country to have a discussion about the people?
Okay.
Now, the question about the new era begins with parties. We are not a partyless state. We are a state that strives on political parties. Hence, the Political Parties Act 2010.
But I also think that's our biggest cancer.
Yeah.
I also think political parties
we can have that discourse.
They are a whole cancer.
So when you look at how Tony Blair then came up with the New Labour in the UK and how they cared about the healthcare systems in that country, how they cared about the education in that country, how they cared about constitutional reforms. Now, we've had enough constitutional reforms in this country. Would we now want to talk about economic reforms? Is it time we talk about political economic reforms?
Not all at all.
Okay.
Or do we talk about economic political reforms? So it's a whole discussion.
And that's where we are going now. To take a quick break, I know Mark and Shika are here to delve into this conversation, and that's what we're talking about. Will the young people usher in a new era of politics, or will they do more of the same thing? The more things change, the more they remain the same. Is that the direction we're taking? We'd like to hear from you. Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag DayBreak. Also, how much does social media influence your political thinking? That's another conversation we'll also have right after this break. Keep your views coming. See you shortly.
Chinos from 5,600 shillings. Only cause span yarn with stretch. Pre-washed, color fast, and shrink proof so they last longer. The only chinos to choose.
Kupata wimbo huu kama sikiza tuni yako, bonyeza *811 *447#. Kumbuka, Sikiza na Citizen ni nyumbani kwa wasanii wote.
All right, thank you for staying with Citizen TV. The discussion is continuing now, new era of politics. That's the conversation we're having. Will the young people usher in a new era of politics, or do the things remain the same? The more they change, the more they remain the same. That's the conversation we're having. I'd like to hear from you. Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag DayBreak. My guests are already with me here, starting from my farthest right, Mark Ouko, Youth Coordinator, National Students Council. Thanks for making time. We have Alenga Torostad, Governance and Public Policy Expert. Thank you for making time. We have Shiko Kihika, Executive Director, Tribeless Youth. Thank you for making time. And also we have Victor Marende, Leader, Movement for the Defense of Democracy, MDD. Thank you for making time. Shiko will excuse you for a moment. I know there's an issue you need to deal with, but let's bring in Mark. You can pass through this other side. Mark, will we usher in a new era of politics or not?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Trevor, for that question. But before I delve into that, and I will answer this in 3 ways, allow me to respond particularly about the issue about James Orengo. And I think there has been a course here about whether there is a healthy discussion around ODM. There are 2 sections. In my view, I've still not bought to the idea that there are 2 segments within the ODM party. And for those who know how the technocracy around ODM works, is that Raila Odinga doesn't really allow a lot of disorder to happen around his party. And I think the president is already aware of this. What is happening in ODM party is by design by Raila Odinga himself, where he has one section of the party which is in government, and the other side, which is one, will be used to as a bargaining side towards 2027, and 2, to also let the president know that one arm of ODM is in government and the other side is out of ODM. And I even shared last week, if you want an evidence of this, looks at the excerpt speeches from during George's funeral. You'd look, there is so much synonymousness between the speech of Raila Odinga and the speech of Sifuna, where you got Raila Odinga was talking about something about the tax revenue bill that was talking about the money that will go to the counties. And similarly, Edwin Sifuna also brought about the same issue. It was seemingly that he had already been given a memo of what to discuss it. So I don't think James Orengo will be too ambitious to try to do politics away from Raila Odinga. The second, to respond to your question as to whether there will be a new political era into this question, I think it goes back. Will our inherent values that take us to the ballot change? Because if the inherent values that are existing as now, whether it is on tribal lens, whether it is on party affiliations, or the inherent values that take us to the ballot, if these inherent values do not change, then I'm not so certain that there might be a change in the political era. Because if you have a political constituency which still believes that if our people are not in government, then they seem to be excluded, rather than looking that this person will be merited to serve in government, they're looking that, first of all, are our people in government. And that's why I think that when somebody runs government, government is run in 3 formats, right? There is the state side of government, there is the technocrat part of government, where you have the principal secretaries and all that. Then there is the political part of government. Even if there will be a new political era in this government, there is no one who will appoint cabinet secretaries from one particular tribe. Because you see, government is run under 2 lines: persuasion, what is being done, and secondly, by perception. So I think if a country we are not able to change the inherent values that take us to the ballot, then I think it will be more or less still the same.
Yeah, so essentially what you're saying is that this is not going to change. Because
it will change.
Do you
by
think
time.
the young people?
I think the civic education that we have witnessed happening in the country over the past year is an indication that although there is never a drastic change in a political, especially in the context of Kenya. These things change over time. Even if we looked at our transition from the one single state by 1992 to the multi-party state, it's something that is a civic education that takes over time. Yeah. And I think by when we are going to the second cycle election from now, the 2032, a lot of things will have shifted and changed in this country.
Okay. Trevor, if you may, please.
Yes, before bringing a link.
Yeah, it's not proper to misguide our viewers. And I would take an issue with Mark saying that he knows that Raila has 2 sections of ODM, one in government and one in opposition.
No, it's by design, but that's true.
Now, to talk about by design, it means you're authoritatively talking about these factors. I think we need to talk about analysis. If you want to analyze a situation and give an opinion about it, give an opinion.
Let's take the
secondly,
of Jojo.
now secondly,
speaking from the same side.
And that is where I want to come to.
Yeah.
Now, Trevor, I want to encourage a culture of our youth reading. Please, Mark, take a second or two and read through the document that was signed, the communique that was given at KICC between the party leader of ODM and the President of the Republic. One of the number one was protection of, to full implementation of the NADCO report. But then fundamentally, on point number 3, Trevor, we talked about protecting devolution. So we didn't just write those points for the sake of writing them. And to come here and say people are speaking from different sides of the mouth, people are doing this, yet we don't take time to read documents that are given for public consumptions is misguiding in itself, Trevor.
So you don't think that they were speaking from different sides of the mouth? Then why was Orengo on the spot?
On the spot for what? Who put him on the spot?
Everybody was.
Have you heard Raila speak about it?
True, that the political class Raila himself has not spoken about it.
And the communication from Raila's office,
like the Ramogi professionals.
Are they members of the party of ODM? Trevor, we must be factual in whatever we argue. I didn't see any ODM member there. But then, much as there was no ODM member,
yeah,
they have a right, a constitutional right, to rebuttal to whatever they feel is right. So, you know, to allay facts, and I want us to argue on facts. There were 10 points on that document. Number 1, full implementation of the NADCO report from the 2022 discussions. Number 2 was inclusion of youth and women in all aspects of government and running of government. Number 3, we had protection of devolution. Now, those 3 are so dear to me. Point number 10 was very critical. Protecting the rights of every citizen to do and to assemble at whatever time they want and do whatever they would wish within the Constitution. So whatever we are doing here, allow us to also read those documents, Mark, and fellow panelists, and to seek to tell Kenyans the truth. To come and start blaming individuals and shadow box is a lie.
So in your view, is ODM in government or not?
In my view, ODM has a working arrangement with government. And there is a reason why I'm saying working arrangement.
No.
Allow me to make this point.
Yes.
You know, you will have your time. Now, when you talk about a working arrangement, and that is, Trevor, that is why I say we have a hangover from the previous regimes, yet we say we want to usher in a new era. The Political Parties Act allows for partnerships pre- and post-election. That is one. We are allowed to have coalitions, pre-election coalitions and the post-election coalitions. Now, the country was at a brink. And, you know, I was alive, I was well when Somalia sank. I was alive and well when Sudan began war. And the country has never recovered. There is a price that a country pays for war. Would we allow as a country
Marende, stop blackmailing us.
It's not blackmail.
No. I'm actually...
Stop sensationalizing things that are not neither here nor there.
I first want to say it's misinforming Kenyans to tell them that we were going to war when Kenyans stood up to defend what is rightfully theirs.
For sure.
And you've actually quoted it by saying it's protected by the Constitution.
No
for
Kenyan
people
was
to rightfully
armed.
Assemble.
No Kenyan was forming
These
a
are the
militia.
same Kenya. The same Kenyans they're talking about are the same people you dismissed by saying, oh, they come to the streets with iPhones and KFC.
And now you say they wanted to
And now they
fall the
wanted to go.
government.
I have never known that iPhones and KFC go to war. That is one. We did not see these young Kenyans going to war. Rather, the government actually attacked them, assaulted them, and killed them. So let us not misinform people in that direction. Second, when we are saying ODM has a working relationship or working, whatever that is, situationship with government, for me, it means ODM is in government. And that's why our CS Finance right now is a member of ODM party, right? Unless I'm lying. That's the case, right?
He sits in cabinet.
He is part of government. He sits in that cabinet, right? That is why Kindiki doesn't look like the DP. Raila looks like the DP. Let's be very honest with ourselves. So they are in government. So we cannot dismiss that. The reality is we have seen this happen again and again. Every government from Kibaki, we saw them cut a nusu nonsense. And then we came to Uhuru, we saw the same handshake. After a protest, and all of us were like, oh, Kenyans are dying, it needs to stop.
It's a pattern.
And Raila was there and the handshake happened, right? And then now we're here, and you're talking about a NADCO report that I don't think it's even important. I honestly do not think NADCO report
It's good you said you don't think.
You don't think.
Exactly.
It's good you said you don't think.
I do not think, and I speak for me when I'm here, because one thing is, just before NADCO, we had Ruto himself fight very much against BBI. NADCO and BBI are one and the same thing.
You're lying.
And I'll tell you why.
You're lying.
The 10 pointers are everything we have in the Constitution. I don't understand why we need another report to implement the Constitution. So there's no goodwill. And I'll be very frank with you. So don't sit here and make political statements trying to mislead Kenyans because you think, nah. Us who come from the grassroots understand very well, and we've read these documents, and we can compare and tell. If really there was goodwill, we did not need a handshake. There was no one who was going to war. We just needed to implement the Constitution that you quoted very well from the beginning. Sovereign power belongs to the people, to the end.
Okay. So will the young people then usher in the new era of politics? Because even right now, there's still a standoff between all of you.
Yes,
we do the same thing,
we will.
expecting
No,
different
Trevor, let's also be honest. Majority of us here are not young people. Right.
It depends on what you call
It depends on your description.
As per our Constitution, you can be young at heart, you can be young at wherever, but let's be very honest.
Yeah.
Most of us are exiting or have
millennials,
existed that age bracket.
I think when we say young people, we're just comparing with who is in government.
No, I've been here silent when you guys were talking.
Yeah.
So allow me to finish. Majority of these people are exiting that age bracket, and it's fine. We are all, especially for millennials, we are looking for jobs, we are looking for sustainability. It's okay to make political statements to see if we can get into power or wherever we want to get to. It's fine. But a majority of young people that will be voting in 2027 are those Butere girls that you saw being tear-gassed in Nakuru. Those kids will not vote in this regime. And they will be voters, unfortunately or fortunately. Majority of the people who will be on those ballots, if this government stops blocking them from getting IDs, are going to be those Gen Zs that we call Gen Zs in the streets with KFC and iPhones. They do not look at this system the same way we are looking at it. It's very different. So every time we have conversations, and I had an amazing conversation with my cab ride to this place, and he kept saying, you know what? We don't have alternatives. And I listed alternatives. I'm like, people have come out. And these are people with clean records. What do you think about them? Hawana pesa. And I was like, how old are you? And he said, I'm 45. And I said, this is not your battle. Because the battle is for those who were in the streets and they saw their friends dying. The battle is for those who, like your age mates, who are done with school. And they don't have jobs. You have good degrees, and we're getting into an interesting cycle where someone does a degree and then they're like, okay, I think I need to go for my master's because there's nothing that is coming. And when you're looking for loans to go for your master's, you can't even access them because, again, the new funding model looks funny.
Okay.
So we have to find a balance, and we lost over 60 lives. Let's not forget that.
Okay. All right. Mark, will the young people change this? Because you seem out of this panel, you're the youngest, by the way, so just for the record.
Yes,
will the young people change, or is it going to be the same?
Yeah, I think before responding to that, I think there's something, of course, we do all to agree that the loss of lives during that period was unfortunate, but there's something that perhaps maybe Shiko needs to understand, that above everything else, the first objective, and I've always said this, the first objective of any government in power is often political stability. When there is political intolerance, political instability, you cannot run a nation. And you can look even from our neighbors who are going through such levels of intolerance, then other things come subdued, because when there is political intolerance, you cannot run a country. And when people saw the merger between the merger between Raila Odinga and William Samoei Ruto, it was not due to affection, but it was due to political necessity. And you see, sometimes you may not understand the complexity of such things, is because when there was such an animosity, because you have young people who are trying to express themselves, of course there are people in the political space who will see this as a chance to cause havoc. There are people who will see a chance to cause a coup. So there are a lot of political complexities that go far much beyond this. So that's why the merger between Raila Odinga and Ruto saved this country.
I have a question, though,
Let him finish. It's okay.
How stable are we as a country? As he answers that, because it's important not to mislead people and lie to people. How stable are we politically as a country right now?
There is serious stability.
There is a sense of stability. Do you know what it means to be in a political unstable country? Go to a country such as, and very unfortunately, go to a country such as South Sudan. Go to DRC. That is political instability. You will be worried before you come even here to Citizen. You cannot walk around. What we have is, and this is the political blunder that the president did, is that you see there has been an exponential growth in the way people are the way people have been, the opposition sense of and what is happening, and uniquely, is that the people themselves are now the opposition. And why? And this is a political blunder. I've said that the president is micromanaging the traditional spaces that Kenyans found solace in. In responding to Marende, I want to tell him this. You know, some of us have been in these spaces also for a while. Now, when you are interpreting whatever politician is doing, whether it's BBI, whether it's NADCO and all this, you interpret it in two senses. There is that which is being typically said, that which is written on paper, everyone is reading, oh, this, whatever, affirmative action, blah, blah, blah. Then secondly, there is the motivation behind what is being done. And I've been in these streets with you, Marende, and we know these things, how they do work. There is that which is on paper, the literal thing, the typical thing. Then secondly, there is the motivation behind it. So when you see the gig mix around ODM, President Ruto has been in politics for a while, and he understands these things, and he knows this is the bargaining chip, because Raila Odinga is one politician whom, whenever going to the election, even if he's not running, he will want to be the big man. He will want to be the one having the largest spoon on the discussion. And also just perhaps responding again to Shik on something, that political complexity, even in any space of government, is always the first thing. That's why when people are asking, why is the president appointing Aden Duale as the cabinet secretary of health, yet he doesn't have any experience in that field? It's because be above technocracy. If you want stability, if you want things to run well in this country, you must have that political goodwill in the country. And in responding to your question finally, to Trevor, I said this. If the inherent values that take us to the ballot do not change, the inherent values as now is that we are more acclimatized to tribal politics. There is an affiliation around parties and all that. Even the Gen Zs who say this, look at young groups from Kisumu who came to say that now they feel included in government because they can see some of their members now in government. You look at some youth groups from Coast who are saying they are happy when they see Fikrin Jacobs, when they see Joe, they see Hassan Joe in government. What does this say? Is that our inherent values as a country are still more or less the same. And unless our inherent values change, still remain the same.
And that's an interesting fact that you keep raising. And Alenga, that's where the conversation that even Odoyo Makoremo here online is talking about. And we'll go to the online feedback shortly. He says, Trevor, kindly, could they focus on the goal of this discussion? What is new in this new political era and how?
I think, Trevor, that's very important, and that contributor has really helped us to restructure the conversation, because we were completely veering off into discussing personalities and affiliations, which I don't think really has enough premium to runners.
Can we really escape it, considering that they are the ones in the current leadership? Because then we have to compare and contrast.
There are ways
this is how we would do it.
Yes, there are ways we can escape it, and already there are so many who are escaping it, like even myself, by first of all realizing that, number one, we do not have an opposition in the country. By secondly realizing that the people we thought would save us were just negotiators for their own gains. by rubbishing things like the NADCO report, which has no value completely in a society like ours. You cannot go sit in Bomas for all that time you sat there, write for us 10 things on a sheet of paper, and then what you come and implement from the time you entered government, what you only implemented is how you could get positions for your family members and your party members. I mean, that was the NADCO report. That was the content of the NADCO report. So as long as when we reach there as young people to rubbish such issues, then we start reacquiring our sense of belonging. Number two is something that I have had here, I think, from him and especially Marende, that notion of blackmail and you know, like somebody blackmails you to imagine that you are in a very bad situation and he got you out of it. I mean, like, what did Raila save Kenyans from? Where was the coup? Where were the firearms? Who was fighting on the streets? Who was killing who? Where were the village militias?
And
where are,
that we're going to be Sudan,
in fact, where are even the forests where you can hide in Kenya to fight a government? We don't even have forests. You know, when you talk about DRC, they have a huge forest.
But we have Kakamega forest.
You can even have 70 militia groups inside the Congo forest, and it will still be requiring even 30 more. But here in Kenya, where do you fight from? Where do you mobilize from and then come and take over Kisumu, you take over Kakamega, you take over Nairobi? That is, I mean, what are we taking ourselves for? Kenyans are learned, Marende. We are brighter than that. We can sift through those lies and we put them aside. And we say, okay, Raila, you wanted this for your people? Fine, you have it. That's okay. Sisi bado tunaendelea na safari. You know, as the younger generation in this country, we still have our battle cut. Tunajua this is the fight that we are having. And how do we get out of this? Or what is the means we can use? There's thousands of young people that are outside there. I just want to speak to them and tell them that they have the numbers. They have the numbers. There are so many young people outside here. Please register for elections before 2027.
They're not giving us IDs.
Demand for those IDs. And those IDs, we can get them. Do you know where those offices are? Go camp there until you get your ID. Proceed and, you know, have a registration. We know the gimmicks that ODM is trying to play with the government of the day to delay the IEBC restructuring so that we have a legitimate IEBC that can register people, because ODM believes they are the ones who are going to help William Ruto get his second term. They have that imagination that they are going to make him president for the second term. But we are watching. We have seen how the IEBC is being...
Think it will happen?
It will not. One term is reality.
Trevor, allow me to come in.
I have a lot to say. We have seen how the restructuring of IEBC is taking place. You've seen friends of the president lining up there. And we are like, it's okay. Bring them. Even if you want any other IEBC officials from ODM, bring them on the table. Form that IEBC. But this time round, the young people have even their own, we can come up with our own technology to manage that vote, to monitor how everything is going in the local polling station. We have to move to courts and compel the courts to allow the Constitution to be implemented as per what it is in the Election Act, that the presidential result must be final at the constituency level. And even the media can tally and call out the election. Why do we have people going to Bomas to cook results? I mean, those are the realities, and those are the things that we are. Those are the things that we are going to into this election, putting in mind that this is how they have planned themselves, but this is how we can plan ourselves. Okay. We can create apps and manage that election and see how it goes, so that we, as the young people, have our result. As when we close polling stations, we have our results and we know how it goes. Let us front our fellow young people. Use the technology that we have to mobilize for the vote. Go around your neighborhoods. Call on the people and tell them, this person is fine. Shiko is good. We want her to be our MCA. We want her to be our MP. It does not need pickups and people wearing T-shirts and caps of politicians as our traditional way of politicking, as our traditional way of campaigning. Young people can campaign with their phones. We can move around the neighborhoods. We can use TikTok. We can use all these social media platforms and rally, not the old people. The old people, we can leave them for Raila and Ruto, and then we have our own candidates, and we get into this space and occupy. I tell you, if you have to win a war, you must send your soldier. There is no way Tanzania will fight for Kenya's war against another country. It has to be Kenyan forces that will be sent to that war. So if we want to change the political space as young people, if we want to have that parliament back to sense than the parliament we have today, we must send there our young people. And we sent there our young people only through the election process. Let them come with their money. Let them have their branded vehicles. Let them have their T-shirts and give them amambogas, the lesos. But we come with a message of change and target the young people. Don't mind about the brainwashed people that believe, oh, this country is going to burn. If we do this, we're going to do this. Because we scare young people about things that don't matter to them.
Okay.
Trevor, do you know why this country does not change? It doesn't change because every moment we have an uprising that can change country, we scare young people that the country is going to burn. Why do we say so? Because this age that manages the political election has investments, has vast pieces of land, have big mansionettes they have built, they have children, they have families. We today, young people do not even have a wife, they do not even have a child to worry about. My child will die, my child will miss a flight to New York where he's doing his degree. We have nothing to lose. We do not have a building that will be burnt down. We do not have a factory that will be burnt down. We do not have a business that we will not be able to go to. So that is the scare that the older generation put upon the young people, so that we can subconsciously defend that which they have robbed us to establish. And then we believe we have a freedom, we are better than Sudan, we are better than what? Who told you Sudanese people are not proud of their country? Who told you that the Somalis are not proud of their country? That is only Kenya that seems to be in a very nice place. That's a lie. We should break this.
Trevor, let me tell you something.
Will our inherent values change as young people? Because that's something that Mark raised, and it's an interesting conversation.
If this kind of talk continues, then we say we have nothing to lose.
We do not.
I can tell you for sure.
We do not.
And these for the record, Trevor. If this kind of talk continues, we have a country to lose. We have a country to protect. We have a country to lose if we continue this way. Fact.
But don't lie to young people that they want to ban the country. Don't lie to them.
Fundamentally,
you can't incriminate us for a crime we have not done.
Fundamentally, don't.
That's a lie.
Fundamentally, when most of us saw a sinking Ruto regime, Raila saw a sinking Kenya. Sinking country and a sinking
let's just go to let's leave alone those personalities.
He was listening.
We have already discounted those things as lies.
To you when you're speaking. Let him finish. Then I'll
you are regurgitating lies, Victor.
And to say that ODM is in the business of IEBC is to mislead Kenya.
Look again.
You know, we have a way of forming IEBC, and it is clearly stipulated that particular organizations and representations forward to the selection panel, then the selection panel does the job and present the names to the president, and the president then forwards the names to parliament for approval.
In Kenya,
there is no other route that ODM comes in apart from at the selection panel, which has representation from across. And if you want to say ODM stopped the selection panel from doing its job, then you are lying. We know that the case that was in court was by the Wiper Party led by Kalonzo Musyoka. Yeah. So let us also attempt to be factual.
We're not saying they stopped. Okay. ODM has a lot of presentation.
I'm being lost in this
ODM has a lot of presentation in those people that are seeing who is there. And they are lackadaisical in their duties.
I'm making a point. As much as I come,
will the values actually change?
I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. And finally, before we talk about the erosion of the values and whether they'll stand the test of time, there is this issue of one term that is coming up here, and it is commonly referred to as must go in this country. Now, Trevor, it must also go on record that it is only repetitive when a certain representation of the country thinks they are not in power. And we, the ODM community, are not willing to get into that shenanigans now.
I love that you've owned up your argument.
You see, so to say that we have to be in it.
So
is misleading.
I'll give you a chance to respond, Chico.
But then now onto the erosion of the values that the country so dearly holds, that we pray to have. Trevor, as much as we talk about our values as a country, as our values as the people, we must hold dear to the responsibility that the responsibilities that we are also given. You know, I was also saddened when I heard that the demonstrators were using iPhones and all that. Shiko, it doesn't mean that I was happy about that. As a young person who was on the streets, I also felt that there was misrepresentation of facts.
Which is still
deeply
supporting.
No. You know, you can't allude to know what I stand for.
No, you've actually made us understand what you stand for.
Yeah, long ago.
So as we stand on these values, let us all try to protect the country we have, as Shiko says.
Okay.
That much as we have a country to lose when all this happens, we have a country to protect.
Okay.
And this country is protected with values.
Okay.
Now, Shiko, there is one thing that you made.
Yeah.
It's okay. There is a point that you made, that all these are in the Constitution. Why rewrite them in some documents? Now, world over, leadership at times has turned into dealership. So they must be reminded. At times have turned into dealership. Now our mentors at times have always turned to be tormentors.
And
so then we must
attempt
to wake them up.
Okay.
So in all of this, much as we got all this eternal vigilance as the people, we must be eternally vigilant as young people.
No, I love that. Yeah. I love that you've said everything destructive and then you said something right towards the end. I love that. And I give that to you. And I'll start from where you left it. We're getting a new era. And ask me why. And the beginning of this is that we have seen our old, and I don't want to call them political fools, but it's been the same thing again and again, try to get us back into the tribal cocoons. We're dealing with a generation that is far beyond that tribe card. And I love that, and I love to see that. And the reason why I say that is, away from these small groups of people who are given 500 bob to come and make political statements and say they're supporting who and who, the idea of tribes in our young people is not the same way as our politicians look at it. And I think that is why we saw them organize better during the 2024 protests. I think that is one thing. I know, of course, we are trying to fight it. We see that coming because of the way the selections are done, how appointments are being done, but that is not really influencing the thinking capacity of young people. And majority of young people, I'm not speaking about this one person who feels like they're still stuck in that direction. And if you're a young person and you're still stuck there, you're doing an injustice to this nation. Second, I feel like now we have more young people who are standing up and saying, I want to be, I want to vie, I want to represent my country. We've not seen the amount of young people randomly standing up and saying, you know what, I'm going for an MP position in this location. We are seeing those coming up. And I will say, I know all of us are like, oh, Ruto, 1 term, 2 term, whatever that is. The idea of change starts from the grassroots, and we are going to see that. We are seeing more young people in online spaces now, more aware. discussing politics. I think, Trevor, you can bear me witness that nowadays the timelines are more political than they've ever been. Anything comes up, it will.
Will that change?
Because this is what is happening.
Just the social media hot air?
I tell people, so unfortunately, it's the same way they rubbished the protest, you remember? They sat in parliament and decided they're not going to do anything. It's just hot air, it's just online, right? No sooner had they said that, the people were in their spaces and they were scared. So I do not take social media for granted. And I'll tell you this coming from a point where I do not come from the big city. I sat down and watched my parents listen to political conversations on TikTok. And that's the day I realized this thing is deeply rooted than we realize. We are seeing so many young kids doing their makeups and still discussing politics. That sticks, because that's a different route.
Even political satire.
We are seeing, exactly. We are seeing now, even, and I love the Butere girls example. Whichever way you stand on it, how you look at it, it meant something. It meant now politics is deeply rooted. The statement that was made by those girls, whatever the influence looked like, it means politics is deeply rooted in us. And we are now acknowledging that it's part of us and we have to fight for it to protect our country, like you've said. The same way we've decided and said, it's the first time we're seeing Ruto making a trip and so many people writing emails, right? It's the same way we're seeing people, diplomats saying, oh, we want to come to Kenya, and we're seeing thousands and thousands of emails are being sent to them and justifying this is the reason why we do not think you should be here, right? How you look at it does not matter. The point is we are seeing a new age of political engagement. And this will define a lot politically. Okay. And it has also taught us that it is okay not to look at politics from the scratch surface, like, because we are always told if you're not Raila, then you're Ruto. If you're not Ruto, you're Raila. People are looking beyond these people. They no longer matter per se. Their positions matter. And we're looking at the presidency beyond Ruto. And we're now looking at the opposition beyond Raila. You understand? So we are coming to a point where, if we are to be honest with ourselves, we've begun a journey that is foreign to us, but interesting to look at. Okay. Where people are more engaged, where people are more vibrant, and people are willing to stand up and defend their country.
Okay. Mark, will the social media conversations impact the outcome of the election?
And I think that's what I really wanted to respond to, and it's also in response to what has been said here. And I want to respond in the following three ways. One, I think I'm largely disappointed by, the two of my colleagues here, whom I think are really overwhelmed by the clout on social media, explaining that as an indication that will convert to now this new political wave, this new political change. Let us go away from the theoretical part of this, from what we are seeing on social media and all that. Let us go to the basic units where we can examine as to whether whatever we are hearing online is actually what is being done. Let us go to our universities. Let us go to the youth movements and examine the characters that are being elected there. The inherent values that even in our high schools, even in our universities, even amongst our youth movements, the inherent values or the characters that are being elected as leaders amongst these young people themselves, forget about the larger political discourse, are more or less the same. Go to University of Nairobi here. Go to Kenyatta University. You know, I'm a student, and I've been a student, and I understand these young people more even relative than, because these are my age mates, yeah? And even in these universities, you will still find the tribal regrouping still there. True. You will find the Onagi group, Onagi something group. You will find the Mount Kenya whatever group. You will find the coastal group whatever group. And even these groups, in proxy, I don't know whom sent them, in proxy, when they see one of them from their areas that are coming from being elected into government or something, they will appraise them. Secondly, I think, Trevor, we are being so much theoretical about, the political discourse around this country. And I think this is why I hugely disagree with Alenga. I want to ask him, even amongst these young people, tell me one person in this country apart from Raila Amolo Odinga, who has the capacity to organically mobilize people without even paying people funds, organically mobilize people to go to the streets, or even say the young people to go to. I'm telling you, Alenga, if you yourself, who seemingly such a political saint, and Raila Odinga were to call the young people to go to Uhuru Park today, people will turn up for Raila Amolo Odinga.
Alenga will have no one.
He will not have anyone.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Forget even, and this is so respectful, yeah? And even the most so much hailed activists like Boniface Mwangi and all these people, tell them to even call for just an organic sitting of the young people so that these people can listen to them. The young people will not turn up. But this same Raila Odinga that you're saying they're fighting on online, William Ruto, organically, if they call for a rally here at Uhuru Park, they will show up. And what does this indicate? And finally, especially now in responding to your question about 2027, Kenyans love familiarity. Kenyans love familiarity. Kenya is not a country that would love to run on decentralized way, that we are partyless, we are troubleless and all that. No, even if there is an uproar over something, Kenyans love familiarity. That's why at some point we were like, wait guys, okay, we have been on the streets and all that, but we're losing our country. Because what perhaps these two may not realize is that while the young people were genuinely out in the street, there is some level of political complexity that you may not see, and there are people who will use this as a way to attempt to do a coup. There are people who will try to bring this country down. There are certain level of political complexities that come to this. And thirdly, and now finally, and perhaps now answering to the question about 2027, I hear people who are saying here, and kindly, I hear some people here who are saying that President Ruto is going to be one term because of this discourse going on social media and all this. Let us be very realistic about the things we say, okay? You know, perception can lie. Numbers do not lie. I have often said this. A disorganized majority cannot defeat an organized minority. It is true that William Samoei Ruto is unpopular right now, politically speaking. He is the minority. But William Ruto has organized himself in such a way that he is going to the election knowing his numbers. While this other side, of course, the young people are the majority, but they are too disorganized. They cannot even come to agree which political party they should go in. They do not seemingly agree on anything. If you ask them, whom should we support? Which leader should we come under to? They do not agree on it. In fact, even if you start asking the two of them which political party they should come on or whom they should relatively support as against Ruto in 2027, they will disagree. And this disorganization would be the benefit. And this is the same thing that happened even back then in 1992, where you are seeing so many people whom, if they had merged together, they would have number-wise removed Moi. But because of the disorganization and them parting ways, this is what now gave Moi an uplead in winning that election.
Okay. There's a lot of feedback coming through that I'll give you all a chance for closing remarks. I know you're all itching to respond, but there's also a lot of feedback from fellows who are watching. Let's bring that up. And I see Victor agreeing with the mark on this. And Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya use the hashtag DayBreak. Let's see what you're saying. Bobo Tieno says we are totally heading into the wrong direction, especially with the broad-based government where youth have been neglected, dejected, with no one to look into their problems. Okay? You continue to say the young people have failed and can't bring a new era politically because they are the puppets of the political bigwigs. They can't stand on
this
their
too.
Okay?
No, we're not puppets.
Yeah,
you are,
he says only us, the youth of the
say.
Gen Zs, understand our challenges better, and it's our assignment to advocate for ourselves because no one is coming to help us. We are the answer to our challenges, and that's why we need change. Nothing for the youth without the youth. It's time to advocate for youth-centered policies that promote access to funding through strategic policy formulation and leadership. We can bridge the gap for real-world opportunities. Okay? Duke says, great topic on a new culture of politics. Our current leadership is not dynamic and proactive, but rather reactive to problems bedeviling us, the youth. Now, the young people of this country must come out, take a vote, and put in place the government they really desire. The time is nigh. But which government is that? That's a big question. Lucky Boy says youth in Kenya have the power to transform politics by challenging the status quo and championing inclusive issue-based leadership. Okto says young people are shaking up Kenyan politics loud, bold and online, just a matter of time. But as the opposition dines with the government, the people are left hungry. So we speak with our tweets, posts and hashtags. Social media is our megaphone. Okay? Sir Nixon says nothing is weak or useless than a government which hurts its youth, whether by action or by lies. Actually, the head of state, who is like the youth's father, should be their first hero and not their first disappointment. MC Rumors says it's time for the youth to stand up and be counted. The country is on the wrong course. Nothing is working. Corruption, bad governance, abductions and impunity are now rife. We shouldn't let our country go down the drain under our watch.
It's true.
Sheila says youth claiming to be leaderless, tribeless and woke are now vouching for impeached leaders and those who oversaw murderers and bodies being dumped in River Yala. Peak hypocrisy, in my opinion. Okay? Samuel says we must demand a new era of politics in counties, one that is based on inclusivity, unity and progress for all citizens. It is time to hold our leaders accountable and ensure that they work for the collective good of the counties. Engineer Lazaro says youth shouldn't just complain over the media and wait for things to happen in miracles. They should take advantage of their digital knowledge and numbers to outshine old guards in an open democratic elections. Okay? Kobai says Kenya's political landscape is evolving with youth shaping it through activism, digital engagement and leadership. They are driving discussions on employment, education and accountability. Kevin says we are living in an unprecedented times where social media is the first-hand source of information. People nowadays resort to TV, radio and print media just to ascertain whether the news is fake or not. Okay? Edna says politics requires planning and forming parties. If the youth continue with the narrative of being partyless, they will be left with eggs on their faces because, let's face it, Kenya is deeply tribal na wanasiasa wanajipanga na watakuja na pesa na watanunua vijana wote. I agree.
Shanunua hawa.
Let's see.
We are seeing
Only two remaining. Political landscape is evolving with shaping it through activism and digital engagement. They're driving discussions on jobs, education and accountability. However, the executive's capture of the opposition remains a setback for democratic progress. A lot of feedback coming through. But I'll give you a chance for closing remarks and I'll start by the order of arrival. Alenga, just closing remarks. 1 minute.
Mark, there are very fantastic things you said, but they lack empirical grounding. So they are more classified as hubris. 2, there are things you say, someone listens to you and they hope they can unhear you. Thirdly, you pointed at the bad crop of thinking within the universities, and being a student leader or having been a student leader, you deeply indict yourself because you are part of the problem. In the sense that you pontificate falling structures, the structures that you can actually see are falling down, but you say, well, they will rise again. It is painful, but not really painful because you represent a very small fraction that anchor their hopes on politicians, especially the old ones, hoping one day they will give them space. You have seen time and again, when they have been confronted by an opportunity to elevate a young person, they have picked one of their children. You know who are the ones who have gone to Yala, which is a platform for developing young leaders so that they can get political knowledge, they can acquire some resources and come back home and bid for an electoral position. But you have seen those leaders, when confronted with that decision, they shamelessly write the name of their son or their daughter. There's even one who is doing the second term at Yala. It is, that is how it is. And these are things that young people are seeing. So then you definitely can see clearly that they have no plan for you. I really appreciate the feedback that has come in. And if it was a survey, then you would know where the youth sentiment lies.
Okay.
Those feedbacks have helped us to debunk the lies that were spewed this morning. And they have helped us to see what young people are thinking outside there. We have the numbers, we have the technology, and we have the ability to mobilize for our own. But then, the picture of the leadership that we want, the picture of the Kenya that we want, is a picture that has people that reflect our sufferings, they reflect our struggles, they reflect our reflections.
Okay. And
that group we cannot find in the current people that sit in the seats of power. Mark and Victor have discounted us on a few things on how we can radically change the space. And I'm actually telling you, we are not in a hurry to just turn the pan the other side. We will go step by step.
Okay.
If in the last election, the people of Mumias were able to elect Salasia, whom we have seen is doing an incredible job than even most people that have degrees in law, those ones who are now speaking just like any other person that never even stepped in the doors of school. He's doing a great job. He's inspiring young people in that constituency or even the constituency next that it is possible.
Okay.
So the gains that we are making are step by step.
Okay.
And with the hope that we have, in 2027, we might send more of Salasia into that house and into that Senate, so that we can have policies that reflect our times.
All right, Victor, closing remark.
Thank you, Trevor. I regret that we celebrate Salasia, who has no policy in Parliament. I deeply regret.
We celebrate what he's doing on the ground.
Parliament is about making laws. Now, secondly, and maybe lastly, I appreciate the effort that is being made by the youth of this country. But the panel hearing must appreciate one thing, that there is value in gelling the experience of the old and the energy of the young and the motherliness of our women. To win against all odds, the experience of the old is critical. They have seen it all. Their advice is critical. Their guidance is critical. If you go to any contest without the wisdom of the old, there would be a problem. To win independence in this country, the youth of the then days shared in the experience of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. They shared in his experience, the experience of his age. Now, to win the second liberation war, we know and we've been told about the young Turks of the early 90s. They are shared in the experience of Mzee Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. I implore on our youth, much as we have the energy, we have the drive, we are so energetic, let us share in the experience of the old. They have seen what we have not seen. Okay. They have been youth, we are youth. They have been old, we have not been old. Asante.
Shiko.
Well, they've been old, but they've not taught us how to vote right. They've taught us how to vote out. Anyway, I think one is to appreciate the feedback that has really come from the young people. I think it sets us to see how tired they are and where they stand politically. Second is to say, I do not believe that our journey to accountability means listening to old people, because we understand what hurts us, we understand we are not employed, and we understand what are the reasons, we understand the debt conversation, and we can break it down to understand how much more we're supposed to be paying off our pay slips, if you have one, that is, and even if you don't have one in terms of VAT and other taxes that you're going to incur. We are able to read, understand, and decode. That is really important, and for our generation, this is what we need to use as the tool as we go to the next election. As per where we stand politically, I will say this, dear young people, the ball is in your court and has been for the longest time, but now it's more real than ever. If you want us to continue the journey with the thieves, the murderers, and people who've taken away your future from you, then fine, well and good is your diplomatic and democratic right as it is. But if you want a change, if you want jobs, if you want to live your life, if you want to live a day at a time without thinking tomorrow I'm going because my mental health cannot be held together, because I cannot afford the shift-shaft conversation that we have right now, because I cannot afford to pay for my kids' education, then this is a time to change the narrative, and we are not out of options. We must see politics for what it is, and we must not succumb to the lies that politics is complex. There's nothing complex about you voting in the future.
Okay, great. Mark.
Yeah, just two things. And first of all is responding to my very good friend here. You know, Trevor, I'm not normally not a very emotionally driven analyst, especially when it comes to such issues. And I will even urge my good friend here to go and try to stand for a political seat and urge the same young people who are on social media and see if they will come out and vote for him in their numbers.
I'm doing it in 2027.
We shall see, and you shall see.
Embakasi West.
Embakasi West.
And you shall see. And if you're pegging
you shall be there.
And if you're pegging and good luck
I don't
with
have
that.
to win. If I don't win,
if
I
you're
will not
pegging
call
your
Mandamano.
It's okay.
If you're pegging your entire fate on the clout on social media, on the clout of the social media about the social uproar there of the young people to win on the election, you'll be surprised. But lastly, I'll want to say this. The young people, we have the numbers to change this country, whether it's politics, whether it's our democratic space, but there are tendency of certain historical patterns that normally would help you to predict how things will turn out. An election, and I've said this before, is not a singular event like the finance bill, where you can build momentum over 1 week and come and cause discourse. Winning an election is a process. It's something that comes under certain centralized structures, such as coming under some political party, having somebody you can follow, and somebody whom you can vote for. Because remember, in an election, people don't vote for somebody. They vote against somebody. So I will say this, finally. The President William Samoei Ruto, in terms of politics, wants to engage the young people. And as the UDA party, we have even the Comrades chapter, and we will continue engaging the young people if you do not find even an alternative out there. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. That's why we leave it for now. Victor Marende, leader Movement for the Defense of Democracy, MDD. Alenga Torostad, Governance and Public Policy Expert. Shiko Kihika, Executive Director, Tribeless Youth. And Marco Uko, Youth Coordinator, National Students Council. Thank you all for speaking to us this morning. We still haven't found who that new leader is, but we'll keep talking about this conversation of the new era of politics and what it means, how it will go, how the social media will influence political conversations and all that. All right, thank you. Coming up next is DJ GG. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. Bye for now.